What's up? And yesterday it's the Russian dude. There is an old saying in Russian politics. Loyalty is worth more than gold, until it isn't. The last part is a new edition included post-2022, or maybe earlier, much earlier, but it doesn't matter. Dmitry Kozak was one of Putin's most trusted fixers, the guy you sent when you wanted the job done quietly and with a polite smile that could conceal a dagger. Crimea's integration, Kozak was there. Sochi Olympics, Kozak ran the show. Pre-war diplomatic smokescreens about evil Nazis in Ukraine. That was him too. But now, in the Kremlin's iron circle where disagreement is usually a career self-implosion, Kozak has done the unthinkable. He has told Putin the war in Ukraine is a disaster. And not just privately to a few friends over vodka and pickled cucumbers, no. He has been pressing for peace talks, pushing for reforms, even suggesting putting Russia's almighty security agencies under real government oversight. Translation: he just stepped directly in the toes of the one big, almost bold monster. The timing could not be messier. Putin's gearing up for this big made-for-TV show with Donald Trump meeting in Alaska, desperate to present himself as the unshakable, ice-veined Tsar of the East. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelenskyy, in the meantime, is already calling bluff on Putin's peace gestures, warning that every offer is just another poisoned chalice, another setup to seize more land and use it as a springboard for the next invasion. And in the background, the front lines are bleeding. Russian sabotage units are punching holes in Ukrainian defenses near Dobropillya. Ukrainian reserves are rushing to plug gaps, and Putin's propaganda machine is gearing up to sell the idea that Moscow is quote-unquote winning, and to sell this idea to literally anyone innocently stupid enough to buy it. So guys, let's break this all down. How a trusted Kremlin insider became a quiet dissident. How the Alaska meeting is already turning into a geopolitical circus. Why Zelenskyy's warning should make everyone listen. And why the fighting on the ground could decide whether the summit means anything at all. Dmitry Kozak was not some mid-level bureaucrat plucked from obscurity. No, he has been welded to Putin's inner circle for decades. Part political enforcer, part crisis manager, part behind-the-scenes operator with the kind of job that did not come with press conferences, but could change the shape of the map. Born in Ukraine, by the way, trained in the Soviet Special Forces, he then met Putin back in the chaotic 1990s in St. Petersburg politics. And the two built the kind of relationship where Kozak could be trusted with missions too delicate for anyone else. When Crimea was seized in 2014, Kozak was the one orchestrating its absorption to Russia's system. When 2022 invasion was still just a massive troop build-up next to the border, Kozak was out there meeting Western diplomats, chain-smoking gold-filtered cigarettes, and unloading speeches about Kiev's terror regime, while simultaneously assuring that under no circumstances the real invasion is on the table. How the tables turned now, right? On the surface, he looked like the perfect war hawk, but inside the Kremlin's marble halls, Kozak was waving the red flags, warning that Ukraine would fight harder than anyone in Moscow wanted to believe, that a full-scale invasion would be a disaster. He even brought Putin a negotiated peace deal just days after the war began, one that could have stopped the bloodshed before it swallowed thousands of lives and influenced millions. Putin, as you can imagine, tossed it aside. That moment was the beginning of Kozak's exile from real influence. Slowly, his power was stripped. His portfolios, be it Moldova, Georgia's breakaway regions, Ukrainian talks, all of these were handed to Sergei Kirienko, a man who embraced the war like it was his personal calling card. Kozak went from being the Kremlin's top man and one of the longest-lasting Putin's personal aide to an increasingly sidelined relic, simply because he was brave enough, if you can call it that way, to tell straight to Putin's face the truth. That this war is a financial and political disaster, that the longer it continues, the weaker Russia becomes, and that stopping it later will have much more severe consequences than stopping it right now or stopping it yesterday. Because at some point in the future, 2, 5, 10 years from now, the war will end. That is a fact. Every single war ends at some point. And just because truth hurts Putin, especially coming from people he trusted the most, his most loyal advisors sooner or later disappear, physically or figuratively speaking. Yet Kozak did not vanish completely, at least not yet. He still had occasional access to Putin, still acted as a back channel to Western figures, still asked for arguments to try to sway the boss. That alone says something about the strange loyalty codes in Putin's world. Betray the war, maybe lose your clout. But if you've been around since the St. Petersburg days, you get to linger somewhere in the palace shadows, maybe until you prove that you're completely worthless. Speaking about the war end, tomorrow is this Putin Trump meeting in Alaska. Most likely it will not bring any meaningful results, as I guess most of us expect, but there are some new things and developments to talk about it. Let's do it in our next chapter. On paper, the upcoming Alaska summit between Putin and Trump is about peace. In reality, it's about optics, leverage and legacy. The location, Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson in Anchorage, was not chosen for scenic views. The US did not want Putin wandering around Washington or shaking hands with Russian community in Manhattan. And Europe obviously was out of the question because of that war crimes arrest warrant with his name on it. Even Putin's own idea, United Arab Emirates, was politely shelved. In the end, it came down to either Alaska or Hungary. Putin went with Alaska, a place that used to belong to the Russian Empire, as if he just could not resist this huge symbolism. Trump called it respectful that Putin was coming to America. Putin's PR team, on the other hand, must be also salivating. I mean, taking photos of the Russian president on the US soil, the military base no less, while under the International Criminal Court indictment. That is propaganda gold. And if anyone thinks that this meeting will be just two guys discussing troop withdrawals over coffee, well, that's not exactly the case here. The White House has already labeled it as a listening exercise, which in Washington speak is just we're not making any promises. Zelenskyy will not be in the room either. Macron already warned that territorial questions are for Ukraine and Ukraine alone to decide. And yet, the stage is set for Putin to spin whatever comes out of that closed-door chat as a victory. That the US president sat down with him while Europe fumed, that Russia's war effort is strong enough to bring America to the table. The Alaska venue is a compromise in more ways than one. It avoids the optics of bowing to Putin, but it also hands him exactly what he wants: legitimacy. He will walk away with photos that scream global player, no matter what Trump actually says during that meeting. Most people and leaders will not see it that way, obviously, but since when Putin cared about their opinion? In preparation for these talks that are to determine the fate of Russian-Ukrainian war, with no participation from Ukraine, by the way, which is very stupid, if you ask me, Zelenskyy tries to at least persuade the Western leaders and Trump himself to take anything that Putin says with a grain of salt. Will they listen, though? Let's talk about it in our next chapter. If you strip away the diplomatic pleasantries, Zelenskyy's position is very simple. Putin's peace offers are traps, that's it. The latest one, withdraw Ukrainian forces from the rest of Donbas region in exchange for a ceasefire, sounds neat on paper for Putin also, until you realize what it actually means. Pretty much hand over roughly 90,000 square kilometers of fortified land that also acts as a shield for central Ukraine, in exchange for Russia not advancing further, at least now. In other words, keep what you stole, don't move today, but nothing really stops you from marching tomorrow. Zelenskyy already knows the playbook. Give Putin a springboard and he will use it to leap further. Donbas would become the launch pad for another war, maybe in a year, maybe in 5, but it would come, 100%. And no guarantee or handshake in Alaska will ever stop it. That's why Zelenskyy keeps hammering the point. Security guarantees first, then talk about territory, not the other way around. He is also calling for a trilateral meeting, Ukraine, Russia, and the United States, because he understands the risk of being sidelined while two superpowers carve up the conversation. Putin has zero interest in that format, I mean, why would he? It's easier to negotiate when the country you're invading is not sitting across the table, so you can avoid all the weird looks and everything. In public, Zelenskyy plays the part of the optimistic realist. He says Trump can be an honest broker, that the US president is not acting for Russia or for Ukraine, but in the middle. But behind that optimism is a clear-eyed assessment. Putin's Alaska trip is about pressure, narrative, and pretending he's the one holding the keys to peace. All while his army keeps trying to break through in the east. We're not telling any of you guys anything new, so if you've been following this war since the beginning, or even if you've just tuned in several months ago, you already know that Putin's promise is worth nothing. A reason to invade again will always be found. If Ukrainians will not do something accidentally themselves, Putin can always just stage things and make it look like these were Ukrainian provocators. If Putin really wants to invade, he will do it, no matter what. I think that's more than obvious after 25 years of him being in power. Let's just hope supposedly smart people who hold the fate of the world in their hands see it as well, I guess. While politicians draft talking points for Alaska, the war itself does not take coffee breaks. In Donbas, Russian sabotage and reconnaissance units have punched into Ukrainian lines near Dobropillya. 6 miles in 3 days. Modest on the map, dangerous on the ground. The area is a key supply hub for Ukrainian-held towns to the south and the east, and if it falls, it could unravel defensive lines further down. Ukraine's military says that Russia has approximately packed 110,000 troops into that sector, relying on relentless infantry assaults to grind forward. The cost is staggering as always, about 1,000 Russian casualties a day, split between dead and wounded. Ukraine's losses are smaller but still painful. Dozens killed, hundreds wounded, still some missing. And the nightmare is always the same. Once Russia breaks through, pushing them back can be incredibly difficult. Commanders are rushing reserves to plug these gaps. Experts warn that the next few days are critical. If Russia turns these tactical gains into something bigger, they will have the perfect talking point for Alaska. Proof, in Putin's telling, that Russia is quote-unquote winning, and that Ukraine is bleeding out, and that Western aid is just a waste of money. For Zelenskyy, the timing could not be worse. He is arguing against territorial concessions while staring at the possibility of losing territory by force. He is insisting on a defensive strategy while commanders juggle manpower shortages, and he knows that whatever happens in Dobropillya could become a prop in the political theater thousands of miles away. The front lines don't care about summits. Artillery keeps firing, drones keep circling, soldiers keep dying. And every mile gained or lost changes the leverage in those Alaska discussions, even if no one in the room admits it. Putin will come to Alaska looking for legitimacy. Trump will come looking for options to present the long-awaited "I told you so" kind of victory. And Zelenskyy will keep fighting both on the battlefield and in the court of global opinion. Kozak may whisper that the war is a mistake, but the men with real power are not listening. And until they do, every peace offer will be just another move on the same brutal game. One where the board is soaked in blood, and the rules are written by the side that is willing to break them first. Well, there you have it, guys. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. If you wish to support my work, there are links down below, for example Patreon, where there is an additional chapter at the end of each episode. The link is down below once again. Thanks so much for watching. See you tomorrow.
We won't succumb to their tricks, the facade they try to sell. Their twisted words and feeble claims on us all they cannot quell. We see through their lies, their feeble attempts to sway. We do not believe in ridiculous Russian propaganda.